Hey everybody, welcome back to My Wings of Refuge. I'm really excited today, y'all. It's been a wonderful week spending time with family, eating good food, and I'm just really excited. So what do you do when you have a lot of leftover turkey? Now I love to cook an extra large turkey because I want leftovers, but I only want leftovers for so long, and I don't want to put it in my freezer and take up freezer space. I want to can it. And so today we are going to can leftover turkey, and we're going to do it cold pack style. So let's get started. I have here my pressure canner. You do want to use a pressure canner anytime you're canning meats. And you'll want to read the directions in your canner because most of the pressure canners don't need very much water. And so make sure you read the instructions on yours. I can see the ring where I have measured it in the past. And so I have about an inch deep of water. What you don't want to do is use too little water because this is going to be boiling for 75 minutes and you don't want it to run dry. So make sure you read your manufacturer's directions on how much water to put in your canner. In my little pot here, I do have my flats simmering. I have those simmering so they will be warm. Now the water I put in here is warm water right out of the tap. Because we're cold pack canning today, I really don't want this to be too hot. I simply washed my jars. I washed them with soap and water, even though they were clean when I put them on the shelf. They can get dusty and that sort of thing. So I have washed them again. I have not sterilized them. They will sterilize when they're in the canner. I also don't want these to be hot because we're cold pack canning today. So they are room temperature. This is the turkey that we will be canning today. This is what is left over from my 20 some odd pound turkey that we had for Thanksgiving. And so I have already deboned this. So when my turkey, after we ate all that we wanted to eat, I literally was able to pull all the meat off the bones and say whatever I wanted to say. When you're deboning your turkey, if you really wanted to, and a smart thing to do would be to go ahead right then with those bones and put them in your crock pot. And you might want to see my video on how to make bone broth. But if you could go ahead and get that cooking and use that broth to put in your jars, would be ideal. I didn't do that this time, and that's okay because I want to show you the simple way of doing this. And if you don't have those bones, you don't want to keep the bones, you don't want to make bone broth, you can still can this turkey because all you have to do is use water. So that's what we're going to do today. So let's get going, y'all. So we are literally going to pack these jars with as much turkey as we can, leaving a 1 1/4 inch headspace. If you're going to use any seasoning, salt, or anything of that nature, this would be when you would want to add it. I'm adding just a tiny bit of some poultry seasoning. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add our water. This is just strictly tap water. If you have broth, bone broth, chicken broth, anything like that would be ideal. Our liquid, we want to make sure it's a 1 inch headspace. You really ideally want it to cover your meat. You want to go in and make sure you have no bubbles and to make sure you have enough liquid. Make sure it's all packed in again really good. and measure again. Now I want to make sure these rims are very clean. No grease, no turkey, no water. We want them, no fingerprints. We want them to be clean. The cleaner they are, the better the chance of these jars sealing. Okay, so clean them very well. When in doubt, clean it a little bit more. Okay. The nice thing is these are all at room temperature, so therefore they're easy to touch and hold and wipe. So when we're done with that, we want to get our warm flats. Now we're ready for the canner. Okay, so remember here, nothing is hot, but we're just going to sit these right inside our canner. Everything is just room temperature or even a little cool because the turkey came out of the fridge. Okay, so now we're going to put our lid on. And seal it really good. All canners are different. Make sure you know how to use your canner. This is a t-fal. I absolutely love it. It's really hard to go wrong with this one. There's so many safety features. My heat has been off. I'm now going to turn it to a medium. You normally want to turn it on high, but everything in here is cold and room temperature, and we want it to heat up rather slowly. The key always in canning, and normally you're starting with a hot canner, hot jars, hot food, and you're filling them up and you're putting them in a hot canner. Today we're doing everything cold or room temperature, and so our jars were cold, the canner's cold, our food was cold, and so we want to bring that temperature up slowly because everything you want to do slowly in canning with temperature fluctuations. Rise up slowly, cool down slowly, especially when everything starts cold. So we want to take our time getting our heat up. Make sure your valve is open because we want steam to come out when the time comes. It'll take a few extra minutes because we're doing everything cold, but that is okay. In a lot of ways, doing everything cold is a lot easier. On the front end, it can take just a few extra minutes just getting everything warm, but that is okay. To me, pulling meat off of bones is a lot easier when the meat is cooked. So I like to do it cooked instead of raw. You can bones. Did I say that right? You can bones in your meat. I don't like to do that. It takes up space in your jars. And so I just typically don't do that, and I tend to save all those bones so that I can make bone broth with it. So anyway, we're going to give this just a few minutes, then we'll crank the heat all the way up to high. Starting to get a little bit of steam building up. I'm going to go ahead and close it. Make sure my heat is on high, and I'm going to wait until this steams really well. Then we'll come back. Can you see our rolling steam? It is time to set a 10-minute timer and just let that steam just continue to go for 10 minutes. So that's our timer. Okay, so now our timer has gone off. We want to close our valve, and now we want to watch the pressure rise. If you are in 1,000 feet of elevation or below, then you want 10 pounds of pressure. And then we will set our timer once we get to 10 pounds of pressure. But right now, that is our focus. 10 pounds of pressure. And our gauge is already rising. I'm already at about 3 pounds of pressure. So we just wait and watch that gauge to 10 pounds. No timers yet. Okay, so we have reached our 10 pounds of pressure. So now we want to set our timer. Again, I am using pints. So if using pints, your timer should be at 1 hour and 15 minutes. If you're using quarts, then you want to set your timer for 1 hour and 30 minutes. And so now I'm just going to go sit at the table, read my book, keep an eye on my pressure, and if I see that the pressure is rising, I turn down my heat a little bit. If I see that my pressure has risen and I need to drop it a little bit, I can literally open my valve just a little until it goes back to the pressure where it needs to be. So that is how I do it with the t-fal. I can't answer for how you do it with yours. Check your manual. The timer, there it goes. So our timer has gone off, and what we're going to do now is simply turn off the heat. We don't want to do anything else, just turn off the heat. And we want to let everything sit until the pressure completely decreases on its own. Don't rush anything, because that is what causes your jars either not to seal or to have them siphon and all that liquid come out. So we just want everything to just rest and cool down on its own. Just turn off the heat. So it's showing our pressure is completely down to 0. So I'm just going to now open the valve just to make sure there's no added pressure in there anywhere. Nothing's happening. So now I'm going to open the lid. And I'm just going to leave them sitting here until they cool. Okay, so we're ready now to get our jars out and sit them on a towel. Actually, they already appear to be completely sealed. So I'm just going to put my canner away, and we're ready to, as soon as these cool enough, I'll remove the little rings and I'll test the seals and move them to my shelf. Y'all, I hope you have a good week this week, and I just pray that you'll stay safe, that you'll have a wonderful week, and y'all stay tuned. You just never know what's happening here on the Homestead. Have a great week.